Hey, my friend. So I have to tell you about this crazy dream that I had. It was sometime early last week, and it was right before time to get up because the dream actually woke me up. And in this dream, which is totally bizarre, I saw the old house, the house that I grew up in, and I wanted to go back to that house. And so I start journeying back towards the house, and everything around me becomes like this weird clear liquid gel, okay? And so I'm actually having to swim to get back to my house through this thick goo. And for some reason I can breathe through it, it's not a problem. But it was really thick and I was just kind of suspended in air, okay? This shows you how my brain works. So I finally get through this goo and it somehow is in my home, but it's a stage that was never there. Like I'm standing in front of this stage and there's nobody on it. And so I start to get a little creeped out by that. And so I decide I'm going to go back. And so I step back into this thick goo and I'm swimming through it. And it's hard to get back to the other side. And I finally get back to the other side. Now what's crazy and what woke me up is I get back to the other side and I'm actually somewhere completely different. And I look over my shoulder and I see that there is a shadow of someone who has a bat, okay? And they're just standing there like they're hostile. And so I turn to face them and they lunge at me and they swing the bat over their head like they're going to hit me with it. And I scream, but I can't open my mouth. And I actually wake up in bed trying to yell, but I can't open my mouth, like it's just a mumble. And so I have no idea about dreams, okay? I'm not a dream interpreter, but it's really interesting because when I look at that dream, I like to think of it as when I was a kid, that represents that house that I grew up in. And that thick goo that I went through has really been the journey through my life up to this point, the struggle that it's been. And anybody who knows me will tell you that I have made a ton of mistakes in my business. I've made a ton of mistakes in life. Like, I just make mistake after mistake. And my only saving grace is that when I make mistakes, I keep working to move forward. I don't stop. And so I would kind of like to look at this as I'm on the other side of the goo. Even though I'm always growing, we're always trying to be more. But I'm trying to teach you lessons so you don't have to go through the goo, okay? So that you can own them in your heart without having to go through some of the mistakes and failures and trials that I've had to go through. So that's what we're doing here. This is really part 2 of these 8 lessons that I have learned from getting to 500,000 views on this show. So I hope it helps you not to have to go through the goo. And I hope you have a great day today. This is Season 1, Episode 2 of The Stretch Game. Alright guys, so this is 8 lessons that I have learned from 500,000 views. Number 1, I needed to make life as essential as possible to be as effective as possible. Whenever I first started shooting these videos, I noticed I had a lot of different things going on in my life, and whenever I really evaluated them, my life wasn't really that effective. I was doing so many things, my energy, my time, and my actions were being diluted rather than being brought down and being focused in, dialed in on just a few things. And my videos suffered for that. I would get ready to shoot a video, but I only had so much time and energy to devote to them. So I realized I needed to get down to what was most important. And the catalyst for this was really 2 books that I read over the last year. The first one is Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. I'm going to put a link to that in the blueprint so you can click on it and purchase it right there. I don't have any affiliation, but I've made links for these 2 books, and it's like the best price on both books, so check it out. But the first is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, Essentialism, and this book is really all about figuring out what's most important to you in your life and being disciplined about honing it down to less, to what is most important, and then being extremely focused and powerful on those few things. And for me, throughout my life, I've used what I call the 7 F's of GAP, and you may have heard this before, but there are these common denominator categories of life. They are faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, fulfilling career, and fun, or your hobbies. And so if you break anybody's life down into categories, they really, for the most part, can be summed up into these 7 categories. And so from looking at those categories, what I did was I decided what the major roles were of my life. Now, if I look back about 10 years ago, I think I had like 11 or 12 of these categories. And then over the years, I've really honed it down. I've gotten more mature and a little bit wiser in just kind of naturally, kind of organically realizing that you can't be effective, or you're less effective the more areas you try to work in. And that honed down to like 8 or 9, somewhere around there, but I slowly was honing it down. Then I read this book and I really realized that I needed to, and my goal was to get down to where I really had 6 categories of life, okay? 6 roles that I play, so that I could cut my focus, I could cut how many things I have to do in half, and I could just, in effect, just like that, double my focus on those areas, or double my effectiveness. And so that's what I want you to take a look at, is looking at those 7 F's. What are some areas that are a little superfluous, or that are really keeping you from the main things that you need to be doing to contribute or serve, okay? What is it that you can hone down in your world in order to be more effective? And the second part of this is, and it's the next book that I read, it's Minimalism, and I think it's essays on minimalism. Again, I have the link in the blueprint, but it takes a different spin on minimalism, and it's from the material aspect. It's looking at all the things we have in our lives, and the authors, I think, say the average American has 50,000 items. That's when you look at clothes and every piece of like, dishes and silverware and all that stuff. We basically have 50,000 items on average in the home, is what they're saying. And their idea is, if you want to live a more peaceful life, if you want to live a more full life, have less stuff, okay? And I can tell you personally that when I started to look through my closet after reading this book, I got rid of probably half of the stuff that I own. I gave it away to like Goodwill, and I just started going through my house, my wife and I both, and we just started minimizing our lives. And as a really simple example, if half of my clothes are gone and I go in the morning into the closet to look at what I'm going to wear, okay, I have half as much to look at to decide what it is I'm going to wear. And you can see yourself multiplying that through all the material things that you have in your home. So really, we're talking about 2 different areas here. We're talking about the emotional or mental world, and that is the different areas of our lives. And then we're talking about the physical or material world, and that is the things that we have around us. But what I realized, and what I have realized over the last year, is in both areas, the physical world and the emotional or mental world, I needed to get used to less so that I could be more effective. And you can see that when I shoot these videos now, they're more effective because I've gotten rid of most of the superfluous. And again, I'm not perfect at it, but I've definitely ratcheted it down. So that's really number 1. I needed to get to what was most essential, to what was most important. Number 2 is a little more personal, and that is I needed to be more uniquely me in all that I do. We lose a lot of effectiveness when we try to be something that we're not. And a really good example for me, whenever I first started shooting these videos, I really tried to look at what people wanted to hear and what they wanted to know. And that's okay, but not when it's at the expense of what you want to tell them or what you would like them to know. Because you lose all your power and your persuasiveness and your effectiveness in your own unique light through doing that. And so I started noticing when I looked back at some of those old videos that I was doing that. I wasn't being uniquely me, even down to the way I dressed, honestly. you know, the way that I acted, because I wanted to be what I thought people wanted to see so that these videos would get views. And what I began to realize is people really want to see the authentic you, okay? They want to see what makes you uniquely you. And that's in your own life. That's in all of our lives, whether on camera or talking to the person across from you. God has gifted you with a special, unique personality that is only you, okay? Your DNA has never been before and will never be again. A pretty amazing thought if you really think about it. So be uniquely you. But now I can say that, and that's really an intangible thing. How do you really do that? 2 questions. Really think about these questions. The first question is, if you look at the last 30 days, have you been expressing your true thoughts? So in other words, the things that you think about are the things that are going on in your head that you're thinking about. Are they being expressed either in some kind of art form, you know, whether it be video or, you know, writing or whatever it is, or expressed to the people that you talk to, through the people that you associate with, through all of your communications over the last 30 days, your true thoughts, are they being expressed outside of yourself? That's really the first thing, is to ask yourself that question. If not, then you're not really being uniquely you. That's really number one. The second thing is the world that you're in, okay, the environment that you're in every day. If you look at it on a consistent basis, does it reflect who you are, or does it reflect something different? Does your bedroom reflect who you are, or does it reflect something that you want it to reflect? Does your office or where you go to work or those spaces that you're in, do those environments, even the clothes that you put on, does your environment reflect who you really are? There's so much power that comes from swimming downstream, and that swimming downstream is living that gift that is uniquely you. And I think of this song that I used to sing all the time growing up in church, and it's, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Okay, we know that as kids, right? We know to do that as kids. But do we continue that as we get older? Do we allow people to see that unique light? So those are the 2 lessons. The first one is to get down to what's most important so I can be most effective. And the second one is to be uniquely you in all that you do. I hope you found that helpful this week, and I hope you have a great week this week. Whatever you do with it, my friend, remember to do 2 things with it, and that is be both purposeful and productive. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time.